In this video, I'm going to show you a really powerful use case of ChatGPT. This is on a subject of public interest right now in the United States of government spending and public money. This is like a big political conversation, and what I want to show you is like how I prompted ChatGPT to get the facts on this to basically expand my understanding of this problem and different aspects of it so that I can understand and discuss it in a more informed way is really cool. And I think that this definitely came through in a positive way. So what I did is I'll show you my first prompt before we get into this. So I asked it what companies in the US receive the most public monies in subsidies. I just said, give me the top 10. What I liked was ChatGPT asked for clarity. So it said, hey, are you looking for total dollar amounts received, or are you interested in subsidies as a percentage of revenue? And would you like the data to be limited to federal subsidies, or would you like it expand to state and local? So I said, let's just say total dollar amounts across the board, just kind of blunt force. So in about 2 minutes, it came back with this. One thing that was interesting about this, we'll go through all the data and kind of how this worked out, is that the initial answer, what I did was I took it with a grain of salt, because you'll see what it did is it came back almost overwhelmingly sourcing just this visualcapitalist.com. So if I open that up, we can take a peek at it, right? I'd like maybe more sources. I'd like maybe more of a breakdown, maybe, not that the research all came from here, because you can see over here in the right-hand side, it says, 40 sources, right? A lot of them are kind of headlines, visual capitalist. There's a site called Subsidy Tracker, and Subsidy Tracker had a lot of interesting numbers here. So a lot of this gets pulled and consolidated. But what I did was I got my initial answer, right? And one thing for those of you that may not know, and this is what I thought was interesting, is not to get into the depths of politics or whatever, but a lot of people will talk about right now in the conversation with Elon Musk and Tesla, and there's a lot of conversation around, okay, well, are people in power giving themselves subsidies? Well, or are people themselves giving themselves contracts? It's important to kind of note who the top players are here, right? Because And then if you ever want to go into any political analysis, what I did next in this is I said, after I got that initial breakdown of those top 10 companies in the dollar figures, I said, okay, fact check all of this, redevelop the research, and then on top of that, also make sure that you give me 10 additional for a total list of the top 20. I said, also give me the top people or persons who own or have equities or other interests in these business by name that stand to profit from these subsidies. So basically, you've got the company, but then there's, who owns, like for example, Warren Buffett. He owns a lot of stock in certain companies. Let's say they were getting subsidies that would boost Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's bottom line, etc. Right? So I kind of wanted to break it down to say, well, okay, what are those entities, but then who are those people, right? Because a lot of times we don't necessarily associate the names to all of the companies that they're affiliated with or maybe have, holdings in. So one thing I liked is it went through and it gave me another check for clarity. So it said, okay, cool, I'll fact check everything, redevelop the list, but should the ownership details focus on majority stakeholders only, board members, or how would you like that to be broken down? Would you like public stockholders or private owners? And that is very important as well, because private owners versus public stockholders, that's kind of the Warren Buffett conversation. So that I just said, just give me the most significant people and just isolate it to the top 20 individuals. So, and we'll talk about this list, right? A lot of it came down to citing Subsidy Tracker, but what I liked was you can see the activity, right, and where it's going, how it's looking around. It's reading Reuters, it's reading Upstream Online, it's reading Yahoo, and I could even tell it to check out certain sites. It's going to Wikipedia, it's going to a variety of news sources, AP, It went to Boeing's specific site, like their media room site. I actually looked at what I thought that was interesting. It went to what Boeing is, if I'm gathering the use of the site correctly, this is a site where Boeing, we'll go look at it right now. Yeah, this is like literally the news releases about what Boeing is doing and getting up to. It's funny because they are the top. They are cited in both prompts as being the top subsidized entity by dollar amount. So I'm not saying that it's a huge industry, aerospace, space, everything defense, everything Boeing's into. That's a lot of money. So they sat at the top both times, and I kind of wanted to see if maybe, the first time the prompt for DeepResearch gave me Boeing, the second time it gave me Intel or something. One thing I want to highlight about Boeing that was interesting is that Boeing's subsidies in billions is about double the second place runner-up. So Intel got 8.4 billion, but Boeing, it's got about 16. So it's pretty large. So I liked that it had this activity breakdown here, kind of in the sidebar. Because one thing with these sort of agents and these like researchers is like when you do the chain of thought or the progress, it's really nice to be able to go through and audit that after the fact. Because if you're isolated to just having that chain of thought in the little thing where the text scrolls up and down, that's okay, that's fine. But you kind of lose that after the initial prompt rolls through. And right here with this activity, I've got that in the sidebar over here, and I can go and look at that for, as far as I'm tracking in a couple prompts deep, every prompt that I give it in the chain, the activity and the sources will all be built over here, right? And you can see it's going through and pointing out the actual URLs it's going to and what pieces it's reading and using all that to break down. So even though it is citing mainly one site, one thing that's good on ChatGPT is that no broken links. So it does create broken links, but on this one, very good. And it did not give me broken links as far as I'm tracking. Now they're almost all to, I think, like the same link. So take that with a grain of salt. All of these pointed at the same link. Okay, so let's get down to the list because I think this is very interesting, right? So in the U.S., who's getting the public money, right? Who gets money from the government? Who has the most entanglement with the federal government? All right, so you got Boeing. That's combined federal, state, and local. Intel, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Micron Technology, Amazon. Jeff Bezos is in the list, so he's kind of implied there. Alcoa, so the Aluminum Co. of America, so aluminum manufacturing, heavily subsidized. Cheniere Energy, Foxconn Technology Group, or Han High Precision, never heard of them. Venture Global LNG, Texas Instruments, Volkswagen, Sempra Energy, NextEra Energy, Sasol, and Tesla. One thing of note, we'll go over the people here in a second, but one thing that's fascinating is Tesla's number 16. Just want to highlight that. Once again, I'm not trying to make a item out of this, but this is fascinating, right? Because we talk about who's getting the money. What is their output? One thing that I know is that General Motors, Ford Motor Company, they're number 3 and 4 on this list. They don't have full electric vehicles or even a significant line of electric vehicles or autonomous self-driving options. So it's just kind of funny, right? Like, where does the money in our government go, and is that based on effect and merit? And then also the larger question that some people would say is, should money go to companies anyways? This is all part of the breakdown I'm providing here. Just want to highlight that. Stellantis, so Fiat, Chrysler, PSA. I thought this was kind of funny, right? So you got another car company on there, but for Fiats and Chryslers, I kind of thought that was funny because, people like the Fiats, like the Chryslers, whatever. But I just, you would think that maybe money would be given to, I don't know, Toyota or Honda or like, I don't know, one of these like really cost-effective, super popular vehicles. I think thing about that is they don't really need it. Walt Disney's getting a lot of money, Nucor, and Iberdrola. Not sure who Iberdrola is, but Nucor, cool. We got some steel. All right, so top key individuals with major stakes or influence in these companies. So we got David Calhoun, right? Boeing CEO as of January 2020. Pat Gelsinger, so he's CEO of Intel. We have William Ford Jr., great grandson of Henry Ford. So he's got about 40% voting control of Ford, okay, and he's got shares about, I guess, 40% of Ford. Mary Barra, also highlighting that I have not heard quite a few of these names. Sanjay Mehrotra, so Micron CEO, Jeff Bezos, Roy Harvey, okay, that's the aluminum giant. Carl Icahn, Terry Gao, Michael S. Sabel, that's LNG, Richard Templeton, Wolfgang Porsche, so the key family owner behind Volkswagen Group. So this is one fascinating item I just thought, right? So I'll have to go look up what the deal is with Wolfgang. Guessing that this guy's a grandson of VW's founder, so I would say he's probably German. Pretty interesting. Lots of American subsidies going to Volkswagen Group, which is fascinating because I didn't even see them on the list. I'm not sure where Volkswagen is in terms of their ownership. I think that they own Fiat Chrysler, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can check me on that. I think that they've acquired a lot of other auto brands that you may not be associating with Volkswagen at this point. I think they own Lamborghini. Maybe I'm wrong. With that aside, you got Jeffrey Martin, James Robo, Fleetwood Grobler, okay, South African Energy and Chemicals Company, okay. Elon, John Elkin, Robert Iger, Leon Topalian, Ignacio Gallon. All right, so we got a lot of energy guys in here. One of these guys, Robert Iger, that's the Disney, Disney CEO. So basically, it was the CEOs. I wanted it to kind of be a little bit more interesting than just the CEOs because CEOs aside, that's great. However, who actually has the most financial benefit in that? And that's where I'm going to kind of show you how deep research works after we've gone through this list. So what I'm going to say is the CEOs themselves are cool to know, but who other than the CEOs? So I wrote out the prompt a little bit more here. So I'm going to ask it to basically only keep the CEOs that are significant in regard to pure financial gain. So I want this list to be diversified to represent more like people who own the stock that maybe aren't on this list, right? Who would literally gain tons of money dependent on subsidies going through for these companies or not. So, okay, right here, one fascinating thing, right? So deep research, it has this little highlight here. I do have 8 available until April. So I basically have 8 of these deep research tasks until next month. So one thing with ChatGPT, love it, but there is a quota. So I'm going to turn that on. I am going to spend one of those for you. And so let's see how this goes. Okay. So this is really fascinating, right? So it says, would you like me to prioritize individuals with direct ownership stakes over institutional investors like Vanguard, BlackRock, etc.? And I'm just going to copy and paste this and say, yes, absolutely. Because this is where we're getting to deep money. We're getting to money beyond the money, behind the money, right? So I'm just going to fire that off. I would love to see what this finds and how it considers the connections of, entities like BlackRock, whatever, to all of these sub entities that it might even be just basically like proxies of this overall kind of influential money power. So the cool thing about deep research is it gives you statuses right here, and then it gives you this bar, which will fill up over the course of time. And so this is basically representative of a completion bar from what I could tell. Now, what I've seen is I think that this fills up after everything goes through, right? Activity and sources will populate kind of after the fact. But right now I'm gonna actually click on this. Okay, cool. So here's the live view of the actual research. So it's going and looking and poking around. The way that this works, I'm pretty sure that the operator product that ChatGPT has, or that OpenAI has, is basically the engine behind this, which is probably why they're limiting it, because they view it as probably one of their premium products. So it's going out, looking around the web, consuming all this stuff from all of these web pages. And so there's basically, if you were using Operator, if you've seen people use Operator, what I'm guessing is that this is probably doing the same thing. And I think that's so that they can get real-time information as well. They're going and parsing the internet as it stands today, which is very important, because if you have a cache of data that's in, OpenAI's database from, whatever, up to, January of, 2025, right? It's like, great. Well, now you're 2 months behind, and maybe this has changed significantly, right? And so that's not really good for research, and that's really important. So I think that that's what's going on behind the scenes here. So you see it's looking at some of the same sources here. Now, we could have told it to go and look at custom sources in the prompt. We didn't. That's something that I might explore in a separate video. Definitely think that is useful to check on. What I'll do is I'll come back and I'll show you the result of everything when it's all done. Okay, so when it ran through, it gathered from 22 sources and all this activity. Looking down the list, we're still looking at basically the same pile of people. There's not a huge deviation from who we had before. But what I think is going to happen, because I don't want to run through information we've already given, but basically what we did is we said, hey, go through this list and then give me, the financial power behind the power. And it's still saying, hey, basically, this is the case. So if there's anybody above this, then, not to get conspiratorial, but that's somebody scrubbing themselves, or references to their holdings from the internet or something. Basically what this list tells me is that ChatGPT can't find anything that would revise this list. So we could have asked it hey, only give us the changes, or tell us if you would change the list. The only thing of interest here, actually, no. It's just what it did. It kind of changed around the way that everyone is set up. So this is Elon's CEO and co-founder. This guy's a CEO, and then this company's from this country, South Africa or whatever. And I thought that was an interesting blend of information right at the headline level, where it's hey, this person has this role, and they're kind of from this national influence, right? Which definitely adds a lot into it. So with this, super cool. I think that the deep research feature in ChatGPT is underrated. Definitely something worth checking out. I hope that this was fun and that you hung out with me for the whole time here. If you did, appreciate it. Throw this video a like, and I'll see you in the next one.